Broadcasting from Ireland, featuring interviews with some of the biggest names in magic. Welcome to the Deceive Reality Podcast with your hosts, David Peace and Steve Spade.
And we are back. Welcome to the first Squid Game of Magic that we're going to be having here with the new enforcer.
No, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do
that. Somebody got a Christmas present early.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the only mask I'm going to wear in 2023. That's it. I'm wearing this all the
time. Thanks for coming. And before we go too far, I better introduce a special guest for the Christmas special. We thought who would be the best person to get on for Christmas? The person who does seances and works in a haunted house. I think that was the perfect Christmas guest. So Joe Diamond is here. Joe, how are you doing?
Hey, the carols say it. There'll be scary ghost stories and tales of the glories of Christmases long, long ago. So we're here. Exactly. And A Christmas Carol is a straight up ghost story. So it's, it works.
Ghost of Christmas Past will be here pretty soon and we'll have that going through it.
Yeah. Someone that got shot in the head in Squid Games will pop in later on.
Okay, so one of you needs to wear the white gown. One of you needs to wear the wreath for present. And I'll just pull a cloak up for future. It'll all work out.
It'll be fine. We'll get through it. So thanks, Joe, for coming on. We really apprioff you coming back again. Our
Thanks
first
for asking me back. This is a joy. It's been we've all chatted, off the podcast since then. You guys have come to like some of the virtual shows and have hung out online and such, and it's been great. And it's cool to be back on the podcast. And it's any excuse to chat with either of you is always. Yes, absolutely.
Thanks so much.
I think you commented when I messaged back on Instagram, like you were like, "Wow, we weren't even done typing the next part of the message," and you would message back, "Yes, I'll come back."
Exactly. On. Yes, I'll be on the podcast. Like I'm slightly stalkerish, but it's fine. It's good to have it. But we appreciate
it's not stalking if we're all doing it.
Exactly, that makes sense.
It's okay.
It's a stalking circle. That's all that matters. Mm-hmm. But since you've been on, you've been obviously doing a lot of performances and things have been opening back up. How have you find getting back performing in person and that sort of stuff with this new world we all live in?
It's been good. So I'm in the American Midwest. I flew to Texas a couple times this year, both to film Scam Nation, Modern Rogue with Brian Brushwood, but also just had a random corporate event there. As well a couple weeks ago, which was neat. After the event, I got to go hang out at Modern Rogue HQ and hang out with everyone, and that was nice to hang out and just hang out. But it's been good. I've definitely noticed I was really worried coming back because there are so many horror stories of people being rude to servers and not wanting to mask and not wanting to follow rules and everything. And I think the people who are coming, at least in my experience, I know there are some performers who don't have the same experience that I do, but I've been really lucky in that the people coming to these events want to come to the event. They're okay with masking up. I worked at the Chicago Magic Lounge a couple months ago, and everyone needed to be masked in the audience and present vaccination when they come in. And to work there, you have to have your vaccination card. And everyone was fine with it. Theoretically, the chance for them to be jerks was, when they were getting tickets or calling the box office. So by the time they get to the performers, it's, we don't have to worry about. But even with my own ticketed events where it's me, greeting people and bringing people in, people have been pretty flexible, pretty okay. If people are exceedingly nervous, they usually will buy an extra seat between them. So the people who are on that edge, typically are good at, being self-sustaining. I know that's not the case everywhere in the world, or let alone, my state. But at the same time, I think people, at least with magic, mentalism, the performance arts, like the big thing that I think people really have noticed and why it flourished so much during lockdown virtually is because it offers people that direct connection. And I think the people who are craving that understand that and want to, they understand that in order to make the connection, it's not all about me, it's about us and what's best for us. So it makes sense that those types of people are being drawn to this type of performance in this type of venue.
Definitely.
Yeah, definitely.
I think you can see that sort of thing as well, where you're like, as long as everybody's being respectful, and like over here it's the same, like to go to anywhere indoors, pretty much you have to show your vaccine and masks pretty much everywhere, and it's just notice, like I found for myself when doing stuff is just instead of having someone touch a card, maybe they say stop or trying to do stuff hands off. I think people feel a lot more comfortable with that sort of stuff. Have you been doing
Yeah,
something similar?
I've definitely switched up to a lot more hands-off stuff. Not as much, just because, you know, people, again, there's not as much, there's not, like, it definitely happens, but it's not as prevalent as, like, airborne stuff and everything. So people, I mean, I was worried if people weren't even gonna, like, touch a card. Like for the first few live shows back, I was like, hey, if at any point I ask you to pick something or select something or pick something and you're not comfortable with it, just let me know. That said, whoever is comfortable, be ready to jump in and keep everything moving. And I think
I was joking with that with Dave. I was like, so, well, what's your name? What's your name? I'll write it on the card. Don't touch that Sharpie, you know?
yeah. Don't use the same Sharpie over and over again. But I was also doing a lot of stuff before that, like per gig, whenever I've done a house party, I've always left the deck as a souvenir, because it's like, I don't want the deck that has 3 different parties hands all over it and such. I do have a couple decks that they never touch, that only I use, that are more hands off. But you know, if I'm doing a house party show for everyone, it's a nice, for lack of a better term, a ritual to crack open a fresh deck, use it, and then the host gets the deck as a souvenir at the end. Especially for house parties, I usually close with something like Out of This World that uses the whole deck, and you know, and it's so hands off and so fair that the only solution they can give to is, even if it doesn't make sense, is like maybe those cards are special in some way, and when you just leave the deck, there's just nothing. And you get to leave them, especially at a house party, we get to leave them in that, you know, separated situation on the table and say, that's it, thanks so much. And you're leaving the party and the cards are still there as evidence of the last thing you've done. It's pretty nice for things like that. But there's also, like I've also been finding plastic versions of props. Like for example, my cards for Max Maven's Wave. Great trick. I bought it on Penguin. I bought it years ago, but I rebought it on Penguin. But I did get some made of my own that were plastic. So that way, after a gig, I could just wipe them down. So that way, if I did put them, you know, in someone's hand or on a table, you know, I can disinfect them, no problem. I did become, I think most people became like not germaphobes, but definitely more germ conscious. Like for example, I cut my Q&A act. I don't want to reach into a bowl full of filthy slips of papers that everyone's hands were all over. No, thank you. No.
I used to do a borrowed coin into my eye, out my mouth, and now I'm just like, why would I do that? Most people were asking at the time, why would I do that? But I think there's a lot of stuff now, coming out.
I have done virtually. I haven't done any in-person shows yet, but I did do Human Blockhead virtually a couple times for virtual shows.
It's just a COVID test.
It's a COVID test. Well, that's what's funny too. Everyone kept saying like, "Oh, is the Human Blockhead exposed now?" It's like, was it exposed before? Like, wait, it's not a trick. People know. Wait, what? So that was strange to me. But so I was in a virtual show and Todd Robbins was in it and he performed it, which kind of made me go, "Oh, it can be done virtually." And I did it in one of my Halloween shows, and it was great because I got to tell everyone, you know, some of you have seen this live and in person, but you've never seen it this close. And I got to get right into the camera and all of that. Yeah. I asked someone for their initials and, you know, initialed it on the head of the nail, put it in, dropped in a glass at the end. And as a gag that I saw in a lot of virtual shows do, I use it for this. I was like, and if you just send me a private message of your address in the chat, I'll send this to you as a souvenir after the show. No one ever put in their address. But yeah, well, and the other thing too with that, and I never have said it explicitly. Todd said it to me on a phone call once. I used to host a radio show and he was on as a guest a couple times. And when we were on the phone before one of the appearances, we were talking about it, and he said something which I always knew but never really processed about Human Blockhead. He said the reason people respond the way they do to it is because they feel like you're doing it to them.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of like a sympathetic magic. It's a type of voodoo. It's a type of mind reading. And I did it, and I said that. I was like, the reason I do this is because all of you are squirming right now is not because I'm doing it to me. It's because you feel like I'm doing it to you. Even though we're separated by hundreds, if not thousands of miles, this is still having an effect on you in real time. And if that doesn't prove that we can connect each other's thoughts over the internet, I don't know what else will.
Yeah, I saw someone take a splinter out of a foot. On a medical thing, and I was like, I felt this. So like, you can that sort of stuff works.
Exactly. So I definitely I will say I still do virtual shows. I think they're gonna, especially with the way things are going. I mean, I think there will, at least for the next few years, be hills and valleys with it. Like, I don't think it's ever gonna fully go away. I have started doing I have started selling tickets for ticketed virtual shows again for the winter months, just because why not? What else am I going to do on Wednesdays? I want to think positive. I don't want to say I'm doing it to also hedge my bets if, you know, we do have to, lock down for a couple weeks again or something like that. But like, I'm trying to remain positive, but at the same time, tickets are available for 8 weeks in January and February.
When else can you do a show from home and just be like, ready to go?
That's the thing too. Like, I've done these corporate events. I've done these, there's been a couple families that have been, separated or can't travel yet, or it's just not doable. Not, completely aside from COVID and everything, they just can't all be in the same place. And they were like, hey, can we hire you the night before Christmas Eve to come on for like a half hour and do stuff with all of us? And then, you leave and we'll all stay on Zoom. I was like, yeah, perfect. Yeah. So
you've just exposed it now that like this is going to get released the night before Christmas Eve. And people who think it's live, we recorded this in July, so
this is July. So things are great. Things are great. Yeah, nothing bad has happened.
No,
it's July.
Fine. Yeah,
I just broke some Christmas in July.
Yeah.
It's been fine, absolutely. We've been flying through stuff.
No, it's cool. I mean, I've done some stuff like that only this week as well. There was a family show like that as well from Australia, and it was someone that couldn't get back to Ireland, and they wanted to surprise their family. So I was doing a lot of corporate ones and stuff, but it was really fun to do it. It was such a nice thing to do, just kind of bridge the gap, and make them feel a bit more Christmassy and a bit more at home. So it was awesome.
Yeah, that was an awkward one, though.
I do feel. What was that, David?
Yeah, that was slightly awkward because they asked Steve. They were like, "We can't come home for Christmas." Now here's Steve Spade.
hey, that's better than some of the live shows. I mean, who was it? Matt King had to perform after a funeral once. I guess like the college had scheduled, double booked him and a funeral, and so he was like, "Well, I'll go on after." So like,
I know a magician who performed
at
a funeral. They hired a magician to perform for the kids at a funeral.
Man,
it's tough gig.
Tough gig.
That'd be a good seance, though. That'd be a great seance.
1 knock for yes, 2 knocks for no. What was 3 mean?
Come on, kids.
No, I think it's our jobs as magicians, as mystery performers, and as artists to connect people. Like, on one level, from a business standpoint, and to some extent a creative standpoint. Like, if for the performers of all kinds, whether they're magic performers, musicians, the ones who just took a break and didn't dive into the virtual realm, that's fine. I mean, the only reason to be in this industry is because you love it, and if you don't love it, you're an idiot because you're not doing it for the money. I think it was Max Maven who said, if I was in this for the money, I'd be an idiot because there's so many easier ways to make a living. But I do think, like, at this time, artists, it's our responsibility to connect people, to give people hope, to make people wonder. My wife, Lindsay, magicians always talk about astonishment. We need astonishment in our mundane lives. Well, life hasn't felt very mundane for the last 2 years. And my wife said recently, I said something about astonishment. This magician was talking about astonishment. And she's like, I'm astonished every day. I wake up and look at my phone. I look at the news and I'm astonished at what's happening. She's like, I need to forget. I need to just relax. You know, I need to connect. I need to, you know, all that. And I think the magicians who were used to that astonishment side of things, which I think for some, not all, but for some is definitely a form of, you know, ego. It's very ego driven. Yeah. It's also easy to explain away silence as, oh, they were stunned into silence. Were they? It's easy to self deceive yourself with that. But I think we have a responsibility to connect with people and to reach out and you know, I mean, how is it any different? I mean, it's way better when only 2 people show up at a virtual show than at a live show. I've had both happen to me. And like the 2 people at the in-person show were fun, and you know, it was a good show and everything. But then we had to like break down the set and drive home. At a virtual show, it was just like, okay, fine. And the way I've structured a lot of my virtual material is like the size of the audience doesn't matter quite as much. You know, we can, you know, some of the best virtual shows I saw were just, you know, magicians just being real and connecting and talking with people. And, you know, let alone like, the magic was good. I think magic does have to be good and deceptive and all that other stuff. I think that's important. That is the equivalent of like, you know, learning to sing or learning to, you know, play the piano. But then when you're a jazz musician, you got to feel the audience and feel yourself when you're on that stage. You know, you gotta connect. You got to make that eye contact. You got to bring people together. And again, like for a virtual show too, the other aspect of it as well, like there are people, yes, there are some corporate events where like, yeah, everyone has to be there, but compared to like events where they have to be there in public, virtual, I think definitely has its benefits from that. Because you can literally just focus on the people who are engaged and just not worry about everyone else. In-person shows have been great. You know, I've gotten more. I think this is. I worked really hard on my show during the lockdown, so I think this is a combination of that and how appreciative audiences are. I've gotten more standing ovations since coming back to in-person shows than for like the 3 years before the pandemic combined, like in the the last 6 months. And again, I don't think that's because, oh, I'm so great. I think audiences are generally more appreciative, of course. But that said, my very last in-person corporate event was in a not great room. It was very long. The client purposefully didn't tell people they had booked entertainment. They wanted me to be a surprise. And that never goes well. I'll tell you the one time it does go well in a moment. But to give the audience some content that can be useful here, I think I actually send out a buzz email when I get paid and the agreement is signed. I say great. I send them my introduction, my show requirements. By the way, that client also didn't read those. That's fine. They're like, oh, we wrote up an introduction. Oh, you didn't have to. I got one laminated here. Here you go. The room also was not set up properly, but we fixed it and we made it work. But so in the buzz email, I have links to like, for example, a couple TV appearances, my Coast to Coast appearance, a couple Modern Rogue appearances as well. Just stuff to get people excited, you know, a couple radio clips. I try to keep it, you know, relevant and up to date and such. The most recent bit of press I try to put in there as well. And it says, and I do this for a couple reasons. Number one, not everyone's going to see it, but enough people will know. So when I say, oh, I'm the entertainment, they go, oh, you're the mind reader. Oh, you're Joe Diamond. Oh, I'm wondering, you know, can you guess my passcode? Oh, we'll try later. So like it helps me do pre and post show work because people already know who I am. So that's great. And also there's more excitement at the beginning of the show. And when I am a surprise, they start quieting down and really focusing up after like 10, 15 minutes. And I try to explain to the client, like, no, like, we can start right out the gate at this level rather than working to get to this level. Again, part of being a professional, though, is to get them to that level anyway, or past it. And by the time I got to certain points in the show, people were gasping and saying no way and everything. And so it was fine. It wasn't like one of the epic shows where they follow all that stuff. But at the same time, I have more of those than I do this woman who didn't read any of that. I showed up and they're like, so where do you want to set up? And it was this long, and there were fireplaces at each end. And I knew I was going to have to be at one end of the room. And I was like, well, I'm going to be sweating at the end of the show because I'm performing literally in front of a heat source. And we had to tell everyone to gather in close so they weren't at the opposite end of the room because I had my speaker system. But I don't know if you have these in Ireland, but even before the pandemic, a lot of these places were turning like their patios into covered like event spaces, like half tent, half like just shelter space and everything, which they can open up for a patio during. It was one of those spaces, so it's just no noise. The speaker only went to halfway to the room, and even that when we packed everyone in, and it's a powerful little speaker. But it's a good thing I brought it because big surprise, the venue's speaker did not work. So having that buzz email, even if it's just a clip of you at another party or, a celebrity testimonial or a clip of you on a podcast or something, just to let people know like, hey, this is going to be, because at least with mind reading, and I don't know what this is about me, whenever I'm brought in as a surprise and they say, this is the surprise, for some reason people say, and I don't know if they're joking and I don't know if they're serious, but people go, oh, stripper?
Yeah. I get that all the time as well. They're just like stripper straight away.
And my line for that, if that does happen to you, is I say, yes, the only difference is it's going to cost $20 to leave. That's the line I use for that.
I think the speaker thing is a great tip as well, because it's something I put in my book the whole time, that like no matter when, because anybody who showed up to a wedding just to hear the speeches, you can tell that the microphone doesn't work at all, because the speeches are just always horrific.
My own spare speaker and my handheld mic has been already in the last few months. I got it. That was my big purchase coming back to in-person shows for the pandemic. I was about to, but then the lockdown happened. And again, like a hot tip, I think Drew Beckenstoss talks about this on his Penguin lecture, and something I'm going to start doing for times like this is say, and if they don't have one, you can rent my speaker for an additional fee, and then you add another $50, $100, $250, whatever onto that. Does mean you're stuck at the event. So that's kind of why I haven't done that. But even after this event, the CEO came up and took the mic, and the booker was like, well, Joe's got to go. We should let him have his mic back. It's like, it's fine. I'll just reset over here. You give out the awards. But anyway, at that event, I told the woman, I was like, well, I told her, the line about the stripper. She's like, no one's going to think that. And I was like, okay, well, I want to win some people over. So I went to the far end to perform for those people, to give them a reason like, hey, get up and come over here. It's going to be worth it, to show them that. And when I said I was part of the entertainment, someone said, stripper? And I was like, hang on a second. And I called the woman over and say what you just said. It's like, I was even more psychic or right from that standpoint. But yeah, just having that buzz email that they can just copy and paste and send to people has been, and it's not long. I think it's like a paragraph, maybe two. And it's got some links, in there as well. Another hot tip, you don't have to do this, but let's just say this can help you save on some space. Let's say you've got a performance of yourself on like local radio. I'll have like a quote from them, and then, 95 Will Rock, and have that be a link that they can click on to go to the video of me performing on the radio. So if they just want to read it, they can. If they want to watch the video, they can as well. So that's another option. Again, that'll hold up to being copy and pasted in an email. Really, really easy. But But yeah, something like that has been a lifesaver. Now, the times I have been a surprise that did work were also recent. It was in November and first week of December. They were people who have bought tickets for my shows, and their families hired me to come to their parties. And that was great because I told them, I was like, send this out to like 10 people. Don't tell her and everything. Tell them it's a surprise, but let them know, hey, we booked Jenny's favorite, magician or this mind reader guy. Jenny's seen him a bunch. She brought him to us to his Halloween show. She's going to love that he's going to be here. And then when I came in, and this is what I think people want when they book you for a surprise, they want that moment for people to go, oh, and when they don't know who you are already, it's just like, we brought some guy. So even when not everyone knew who I was, when everyone said like, oh, watch Jenny for the next few moments, watch Jenny for the next few moments. And I came in the room and walked right up to Jenny, and she freaked out and hugged me. And I was like, we're about to do a show for all of your friends and family right now. She's like, you're not just stopping by to say how you're doing a show. I was like, yep, your husband and best friend hired me months ago. We've been keeping it a secret. She's like, oh my gosh. And then she started going around, which I knew would happen. I knew I wouldn't have to do much from that standpoint. So that worked. And then another one, actually someone brought their husband to my studio at the mansion I work in. They had bought out a show there. And they said they were going to go by to look at the building's holiday decorations, not Halloween decorations. Those are down now. The holiday decorations are up. And then they were like, they got out of the car, and then she was like, hey, let's go in. And then he goes in, and he sees like all his other friends starting to pull up. He's like, what's going on there? And she's like, we're going to see Joe. Everyone's here to come. And he's like, really? And he came through the door and hugged me. And so there are situations where the surprise does work. The other thing I've done is I have rewritten that buzz email. Like I'm doing this for a woman. Her and like one of her family members have seen me, but the others haven't. They've kind of heard about it. And I'm going to rewrite the buzz email to be like, for her to send to everyone to be like, hey, do you think that this is something we should do as a family outing in the next year? Look at some of this. Let me know what you think. So now when I come in, they go, oh, we watched that video of that guy. Now there's context for it. So if they do insist on it being a surprise, which again, if the woman had just told me ahead of time, we could have done. But yeah, and again, this doesn't work 100% of the time, all the time, but 99% of the time, the people want to have a good experience and they understand like, oh, they're hiring you as the expert. You've done more of these. In my experience, when I've been a surprise, this is what works the best in those situations. So I think it can work for sure. But again, I think it's a matter of, I equate it to if you have a little kid who wants to drive the car and you put them on your lap and like pretend like that they're going, don't give them full control of the steering wheel and don't let them, touch, but if you're on a back road, I know don't ever do this, by the way. This is a bad strategy, but I think everyone knows what I'm talking about when I say this, you can give them the illusion of having more control than they actually have.
If you're going to drive a car dangerously, be blindfolded at least.
100%.
The what is said on the Deceive Reality podcast is not necessarily the opinion of Joe Diamond. He's talked about blindfold drives way too much. Do as I say, not as I do. Don't do them. Who was there was some show in New Zealand where I know who this was. This gentleman had purchased some stuff from my web store. It was Lawrence Lung. He did like a comedy special in New Zealand where each show he talked to like UFO experts or psychics. And for the psychic episode, he's an amateur magician, so he had an episode on magic, but he also had an episode on psychics where he like took a ride with Banachek while he was doing a blindfold drive. So later on, he gives a blindfold drive a test. And he crashes the car. And he's like, wait. And he takes the envelope out of the visor and hands it to Banachek. And it says, I predict my blindfold drive will end in a car crash. And then I saw his name order some stuff. And I was like, hey, I saw your show years ago on YouTube because it was bootlegged on YouTube for a while and I loved it. He's like, oh, that was really cool. Thanks for that.
Great.
But yeah,
Man,
if you can find some of those clips, it's worth finding. They're hilarious.
You fool in bush is just like the best thing. You can see his head just melt, and he's a knowledgeable guy, but you've nailed him in the last few months.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I kind of. I wanted to see if I could, like on one level, like, because I'm not a big proponent of like magician foolers. Like there are so many tricks. And I would even to some extent talk about my most recent Scam Nation appearance, which is closing in on 100,000 views, by the way, which I'm very proud of.
Brilliant.
Most successful video. It's the longest Scam Nation video I've done, but it's performing better than any of the other things I've done on there. And let me be clear, I'm proud of all the stuff I've shared on Scam Nation. There's not a single thing I've released that I felt like, I don't know about this. Like I work really hard on everything and I really try to develop the best, content, best material possible for people all over the world. That said, I've done that effect off and on for the last few years since Eugene taught it to me. And I think material like that is important in moderation. There are people who come to a magic show or mentalism or whatever who want an unsolvable puzzle. For them, the puzzle is what they get out of it. Now, I think there should be other levels that people can appreciate magic on, from the storytelling to, again, the connection to, I think there's other levels people can enjoy, a performance of magic on. That said, I mean, there are a lot of people that just want to play chess. I call it the Bobby Fischer analogy. If someone wants to sit down and play chess with Bobby Fischer, they know they're going to lose. They're not sitting down at a chessboard to play a game of chess to try and win. They just want to say they played with Bobby Fischer. They want to go, I went toe to toe. I did my best, but hey, he's Bobby Fischer, I have noticed that some like poker deal routines and such work in that vein for me. But material like that piece works really well for me as well. I was hesitant on sharing it because it is something that I've kind of saved exclusively for magicians. I have done it for a good amount of lay people as well, but I also kind of feel like if a lay person can backtrack that method or remember that method, they're no longer a lay person, and I'm okay with that. So
it's mental.
I've actually had a couple of clients and regulars, like one of my restaurant gigs. I started going back there in recent weeks, and I've had some people who saw it who said, that was amazing. I tried to follow it. I have no idea, but it made me respect what you do even more. Because they don't know like how easy or difficult everything is. And also to a large extent, we've talked about this before, people don't care really. They want to feel connected. They want to feel something. My friend Christian Cagigal once said, he's like, I don't need it to have a lot of meaning. I just want to feel something. And I think that's how a lot of people feel with magic. And for some people, what they want to feel is that impenetrable puzzle. The stuff that they can turn over and try every which way and think about and replay in their head. That is a valid form of magic. That is a valid form of performance. It's a valid form for someone to enjoy it. And it bothers me when like magicians are like, oh, all they did was try to figure it out the whole time. It's like, you mean like us?
Yeah,
you mean
that's
like
all we do.
the whole reason we got into this? Like, why is that a bad thing? And so so that one in particular, I knew, because I usually like send video of a lot of the stuff to Brian and Corey ahead of time, so we know what we're going to work on. But since I had just done that, so basically I started going back. So let me back up a little bit here. As the last episode we filmed in early June dropped, it was The Secret Meaning of the Four Aces, where I taught my version of Doc Daly's Last Trick. During the premiere of that, Brian and I were doing the live watch from our homes. And like he texts me, he's like, dude, that's great. When can you come back? Pick dates. Like,
Nice.
And I was like, okay. And since we had only gotten through about half of what we had filmed before, there's usually you get to about 2 to 4 things filmed in a day, which doesn't sound like a lot, but for them, that's great. If they can get, across both platforms too, Modern Rogue and Scam Nation, that's a good day for them. But we still only got through half of what I had last time. So he knew like, oh yeah, Joe will have this. He's got it. And I was looking at some other things maybe, and I was thinking about that effect. And I mentioned it to Brian when I arrived. I was like, it's this old thing. It's in one of the Card College books. He says it's from Paul Bearer's review. And Brian stands up, goes in the other room. He's like, is it in this volume? And I check my notes because I had the volume number and page number. And I look and I'm like, yes, don't look at this until filming. Because Brian, I'm going to fool the shit out of you. Like I locked him in the eyes and I threw down the gauntlet. And like that's not, and it wasn't a challenge standpoint. I think that's the important thing too. There are ways to present that type of stuff that isn't a challenge to figure out. Like that's another thing where you can just point out like, yeah, this is an interesting little situation we have here where I can't rely on forces or stacks or key cards or anything seemingly, right? Yeah, that's interesting. All right, I'm going to find your cards now. I think that's a different attitude than saying like, try to figure this out. But I knew going in, like if there was anything that would go under that kind of scrutiny, it'd be him. And in that situation. And then Dez, who's ridiculously smart. I'll tell you a story about Dez in a moment. His day job is in robotics, one of his day jobs, but he also has background in magic and sideshow and everything. Actually, I'll tell the story now because it works out. To give you an idea of the level of intellect he's at and how much like I think Brian low key like brought him in to just be like, all right, Joe says he can try and fool me, but I want to see if you can like, and like the fact that both of them were like, had no clue. It's a favorite. It's a favorite for sure. So Desra made a robot, a full-on robot that's about this tall that he gave to Brian and it's at HQ. And this thing can track a ball and you can play soccer with it. You can kick a ball at it and it will walk over to it and kick it. And we're watching it go and everything. And it's kicking the ball. It's on the slate surface. It's walking. All of a sudden, it falls over. And the way Brian said we should have filmed this because my reaction was priceless at this point. Because at that moment, it was like, oh, the show's over. And then the robot falling over on the floor, the one arm goes, whoosh, the other arm, whoosh, the legs, and the robot gets itself back up like a Terminator movie. And I'm like, no, like when the first arm went, I was like, no. No. And then it got up and it stood up and resumed kicking the ball. I was like, oh no.
You're like, kill it now.
Robots are coming to kill us. And I wish I had a video of my reaction to that. Because it was like the full, like in my head, like, oh, it's over. Wait, it's not gonna. No, it can't. Oh God, it's doing it. It was, so I was like, all right, I have to deliver now with the card effect. And,
I love the method in that one as well, because like as magicians, we love stupid methods a lot of the time. Like I always say, the stupider the method, the more I like it. But that one is just smart, and it's just like that's genius. It's not. It's one of the best methods.
Yeah, and like one of the things that I kind of like about it too is like it makes it's kind of like a flourish. If you do a flourish, it can make like another effect seem more impressive. Again, I don't mind if an audience member of mine ever sees that, because when they watch me do something with their deck and it's shuffled ahead of time and all this other stuff, like it's going to be just as, if not more amazing because of that. But again, I think most people just go, yeah, it's amazing. Couldn't follow it. I'm glad you can. Yeah. And again, when they see something that, just something like Invisible Deck, for example, which is so clear and so precise and seemingly has no procedure, I think it just makes stuff like that even more amazing for people. And I love card magic. I know that's weird coming from a mentalist. I have a whole mentalism show with a deck of cards. I feel like putting saying, oh, you shouldn't use cards or shouldn't do all cards or mostly cards.
Yeah.
I feel like that's just putting focus on the props rather than the experience and the emotional content of what you're doing. You could watch Eugene Berger do a whole set with cards and not notice he had done all card tricks. You didn't care because it was him. You wouldn't notice it until later. I think as long as it's not all like pick a card tricks, I think that could get really redundant. But if you do, like in my mentalism card set, I start off with a John Bannon effect, then a version of Out of Sight, Out of Mind, and then I do a version of Bob Neal's Soul Survivor with the Patio Force, but with a murder mystery presentation. So now we do something that's a little playful. And then I do an effect that Josh J teaches in his lectures, where you apparently memorize a deck of cards in a split second after it's been shuffled face up and face down. I have a different presentation on it. Sometimes I'll do like a fortune telling effect in there and then close with Out of This World with them holding on to a lucky object. And that's a lot of different phenomena. It's not all pick a card stuff. And, there's a story in the middle, a little play, something where I demonstrate a skill, something where they demonstrate a skill. There's a lot of texture to that. And when I've done that years ago, when I did a lot of card stuff, I noticed people would sometimes ask, oh, so do you only do cards? Yeah. And I've done that set informally at a show or for VIPs at a walk around gig. If I have to go over to a table to a VIP group and like do a mini show, I'll just crack open a fresh deck and do that whole set for them and then leave the deck. And I don't get that question with a set like that when it's composed like that. But there's something. The first time I met Eugene Berger and sat down with him, and he blew me away with my own deck of cards. Just like being there and for lack of a better term, the intimacy, the immediacy, the back and forth, all of it. The cards were just the tools. It was just the vehicle to get us there. What mattered was he was a great tour guide as we were taking this tour through mystery. It's like taking a bus tour and going on and on about how great the bus is. It's like, well, no, I want to hear about the city and how much can you make me, the bus is just to get us there, so.
That could be a good business though, because nobody's doing it. Let's do a bus tour where we just talk about the bus and do it like around
it's a tour of the bus. This is where the driver sits. Are we even going to leave the parking lot? No.
There's no gas in the bus. We didn't put gas in it.
There's no gas. Oh my God, that's a perfect metaphor for some magicians, isn't it?
Yeah.
Their bus tours. The bus never. Their job is to do a bus tour, but their bus never leaves the parking lot, and there's not even any gas in it. Oh my God. Wow.
It reminded me actually of something like what you're saying about like not doing the same style of trick too many times, like with the pick a card. Because I was watching the new season of The Witcher that's on, and in the first couple of episodes, they do a trope. In every time someone's met an old friend, the old friend would be like, "How dare you come here? Because I've missed you so much." And they did it 3 times in the same episode with different people. And I was just like, this is what pick a card. Now I found it. Pick another one now. I found it. Feels
there can be a vibe to that, especially in like Chicago style bar magic. But like usually it's like, pick a card. Here's a drink. All right. I'm gonna go sling drinks over here. Shuffle the deck while I'm gone. Your back cards are shuffled. Okay, top card's 4 of spades. Yes. All right. Let me pour your drink. Okay. Let me take the deck. There is a style, and that can work if in the right context, of course. That might not work great, for a formal half-hour sit-down close-up show. If it's just that over and over. Years ago, Will Tremont told me he's a magician and storyteller. He did all you might know him, Steve. He did a lot of escapes on Masters of Illusion back in the day. Like he was.
Okay. What was the name again?
Will Tremont. He did a blindfold drive while he was chained up on one of the Masters of Illusion. He did one where he was on a motor or. Yeah, he was chained to a wheel and
yeah.
So he fell into that all completely by accident. He tells that story great. Actually, I should put you in contact with him because I think he'd be a great guest for the podcast. He basically fell into doing escapes on television in America completely on accident. He calls the story. He does storytelling shows now, and he has a whole story about called The Accidental Escape Artist. But he said something to me once where he said he wanted to do a magic show, never do any magic, but have people leave thinking that he had done magic. And that's kind of how I feel with card magic. I want people to leave feeling like, wow, that was mysterious, that was great, and not notice it was all cards. I've gotten pretty close. There, the last show I wrote, Mystic, it's 50% card material. And my wife helped me work on it. And she felt my previous shows were very card heavy. And after the first set of trial runs for Mystic, she saw one of the shows and was giving me director's notes. And I was like, so what, how do you feel about this new show? She's like, well, for starters, I love it because there's not as many card tricks. And I was like, Lindsay, it's half cards. Like, really? And I broke it down. Now, one of them is with tarot cards, and one of them is Woody Aragon's Finding Your Other Half, where everyone gets 4 cards. But they're in an envelope, and I make it all about the ritual of the Magician Tarot card. So similar to the thing on my Penguin lecture, I've branched that presentation out to work with Woody's effect because his effect and that effect have similar principles in it. But she was like, didn't feel like it. It just didn't feel like all card tricks because it was about the connection and the stories you were talking about and everything. So I'm like, yes, I'm getting there. I'm not there yet, but I'm climbing there. I'm getting objective progress at least. But that said, too, like it's always great to have those 2 or 3 things in your back pocket for when you're sitting down with magicians and go, let me show you something you've probably never seen.
That 6 and 9 trick you did as well on Scam Nation is brilliant. I love that because you can build that up so much as well to like really affect it and stuff. It's such a clever.
Like that is perfect to do after a moveless effect like Thought Echo, because you've been hands off. They're conditioned because that trick, even though there is technically a sleight in it, looks moveless. Like it's very well structured. So I like that it's just, 2 effects that are completely different, but would flow very nicely into a set and give it that kind of texture in a sense too. Yeah, I did that for years with a double lift move rather than the move that's taught on Scam Nation. And I thought that was as simple as possible. But honestly, like when I started working on it again and realized like, oh, this is simpler and better. Because like with the double lift, you have to do a get ready, a show, there's a lot of steps to a double. The other thing too, with the kind of double lift I use, I know this won't be great for the audio listeners, but it's this kind, which is a push-off double, which changes the orientation of the back. So if it starts out as a 6 right now, and I do that move, when I end, it's now a 9. So I had to work that into the presentation and then read the deck. It was like, no, just boom, boom, done. And you saw Josie, who has seen a lot of magic over the last year too. And I've had that happen with a lot of people, and it happened pretty consistently with the double lift method. But with the new method, it happens way more consistently of them just staring at it. And what I want is always this, where they're turning their head that way. Like, wait, did I just see that? Did that just happen? So I mentioned this in my book, Journal of Alchemy. I didn't mention it on Scam Nation, but I'll let you guys know. I came up with that when I was 17. I actually performed it for Jay Sankey, Jeff Stone, and Eric LeClaire when we were all filming the DVD Underground Jam back in 2005.
Oh, yeah.
And originally my idea was to draw 6 and have them initial the inside of it. It was Jay's idea to have them draw the 6, and then you turn it over, and then I had the idea of turning it over and then doing the line for the 9. So that's how long I've sat on that, and that's how long I've been working on it. And it just goes to show that, like, simpler is almost always better. But what matters is the effect. If the effect takes, 5 really difficult moves to get there, it's, who was it? If you remove a sleight from a trick, you've improved it. If you remove all the sleights from a trick, you've made a mathematical monstrosity. I think that was like Vernon or someone like that. So of course it's a case by case basis, and again going back to texture and all that stuff.
Sometimes our knowledge is against us, though. If we know all the sleights, we know what could work, we know the alternatives, and too much knowledge sometimes can be a hindrance. You're just like, if I'd only known a simpler way, I wouldn't have complicated this.
Sure. Oh yeah, there are definitely times very often. Again, just going back to the chess analogy, like when like a grandmaster, maybe not Bobby Fischer is sitting down across from you, but someone, who's an amateur chess player or pretty well known. Like, again, you want material for those situations, but more often than not, like I've realized that's the other thing too after the pandemic. Like so many of us, we've realized have been working way too hard. Just way too hard. like my current show, my stand-up show that I have done, that again, I did on stage for 300 people in Austin, Texas a few weeks ago. I've done on stage in colleges. Been doing it's all material I've done over the last decade or so, but I've kind of reorganized it and moved stuff around so it was all in one show, and made it cohesive and a structure, and it all fits in my pockets. I don't need I don't need a table. If there's one, I'll use it to display a deck on. But like that's it. Like that is all I need. And the other thing too, I've noticed as well, the people who do know, like again, just going back to Invisible Deck, because that's one that has been a hot commodity in recent years, and some people were okay with it on Scam Nation, some weren't, and everything else. I close shows with it. Not all my shows, but I close a lot of shows with it. I've got a couple different presentations. And twice I've had someone come up to me and say, "Oh, I know about that and those invisible cards and everything." And one person said, "But I don't know how you did it." And the other person said to me, "But the way you did it, the way you got everyone involved and built it up, that was so." I think even when they do know, even when like a very light amateur magician or magic enthusiast knows some of the method, and then they can see how much I think the reason when people go, "Oh, I know that one," it's because the performance wasn't as engaging, because it wasn't as, you weren't able to get people, swept up and engaged with the premise of what's going on. I often have used this analogy too. If you're doing ambitious card, okay, so you have a superpower. You're demonstrating that you can make any card you want be on top of the deck when you want, under any circumstance. With that one superpower, you could go to a casino and become a very rich person. That's all, and that's that's the internal connection that people love with that effect. And I think that's why people respond to it so much, and why they say, "Oh, I'd hate to play cards with you." When they say that, they're talking about the results, which is you can make any card on top, which means you could go to a casino, which means you could win. Therefore, it doesn't matter if you can get that card to the top of the deck with sleight of hand, hypnosis, and then you stack the deck, cheating, real magic, really making the card teleport to the top. It doesn't matter. The result of you winning the game and winning all that money is still the same. And I think, again, a lot of magicians get wrapped up in the how or why it's going from here to here rather than what it represents, and using that to connect with people better.
When we're performing live, there's always a guy who wants to show us a trick, and they're like, they usually have too many drinks, and they're like, "Give me your cards and I'll show you a trick." I had a guy on a virtual show recently wanted to show me a trick, and all the guys obviously knew it was an accountancy firm, and he was like, yeah, I've got something here. And I was like, "Okay, cool, what are you going to do?" And he's like, you could just grab this invisible deck. And I was like, oh no, he's going to do invisible deck. So he did invisible deck for me. And while he was doing it, I picked up my cards and I'm cutting the card. And I back palm it and I'm like, yeah, throw me the card. And he like threw it at the screen and I caught it and I go, good job, man. That was brilliant. Well done. You should definitely keep up the magic. And he was like, what?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, and like that's the thing too. That's a perfect example of like not like he wasn't being a jerk. You didn't call him out for being a jerk. He wanted to he wanted to be part of it. Yes, that's what it's about.
It was really flat. Like there was no presentation whatsoever. It was literally like 2 hearts. There you go. That was it.
Yeah.
But it was good. He did it well, but then I was like, just throw me the card. And I didn't want to like upstage him. I did want to upstage him. but I just wanted some little kicker thing at the end for him, and he thought it was awesome and everyone loved it.
You wanted to put him on your lap and make him pretend to try this and then put him back in his seat. That's what you wanted to do. You want to put him back in his seat, and that's fine. Real quick, going back to the guy I was a surprise for, that his wife brought him to my show. So years ago, I don't know if I talked about this on the show last time, but it's I wrote an article. It was in a couple magazines, Penguin Magic Monthly, and if anyone wants to read it, just email me, joe@joediamondlife.com, and I'll send the PDF to you. But I polled my audiences a couple years ago. I flat out said, have you ever looked up my methods on Google after a show? And I did a Facebook poll, and it said, nah, I just like it to enjoy the show and enjoy the mystery. And then, yes, I totally Googled it. And the final result was like 70-30. It was like 70, no, I didn't Google it, 30. Yeah, I looked it up. And it was almost exactly 100 people that responded too. So we have an almost perfect like gathering of like my audience. Yeah. Well, out of all the people who said, yeah, I Googled it, I messaged them and said, what did you find? Because Facebook at the time allowed you to see who responded with what. And so I messaged them like, what'd you find? And pretty much everyone said, oh, nothing. Oh, I couldn't remember. I did, but I couldn't remember. I mostly got card tricks, nothing about how to read minds for real. And then one person was like, I thought about it, but I'm pretty sure you can't Google how to bend a spoon. And I was like, you're right. Of course. And then one guy, who was this guy, he said, yeah, I went online and learned a trick where someone writes something down on a piece of paper and I tear it up and burn it and tell them what the name is. And I was like, okay, he learned a senator. That's pretty great. He's like, yeah, I found it. And every time I do it, I talk about you. How you can have another magician out there promoting not them, but you? Like, where is the bad in any of this? Like, seriously. Yeah. And he was the one who came back to the, came to the show and, his wife brought him. So I think, just trying to hoard it is not, it's not the way anymore. And I think the people who, I think the people who are most threatened by it, of course, are the ones who have the most to lose, for sure.
Yeah.
There's some people who just don't like it, and that's fine too. They feel like I had to struggle for this, so why should it be so much easier for the next generation? And I kind of get that, but like at the same time, you can objectively show that there's more people going to see magic now. There's more people interested in it. There's more. I mean, again, like in the last few years, even with the lockdown, magic as a performance art has exploded for a lot of people in all areas of the world. Mm-hmm. And I think it's because people now feel a part of it. It's not just some guy who knows something that we don't. Yeah. Not to say it was always like that. There have been great performers on TV and live over the years, but I think just the culture of it, is changing. There's more performers taking risks. There's more performers who are taking their audiences to new and interesting places, comedically, emotionally, all of it, I'll use these two examples. In the last year, there was Big Trick Energy. which again, I worked with Eric when I was 17. Eric's an awesome guy. Known him for literally years, longer than most people in this industry. And the Delgadio show in and of itself. Personally, I liked both of those projects. I didn't love them. They weren't my favorite styles of magic personally. But I did like a lot of, I did find enough to like in each of those shows to enjoy and feel good about, you know, telling people and recommend. And I was thinking about it and I was like, how great is it that like we have the high art directed by Frank Oz Broadway show and the Jackass of Magic. Like, how great is that? Can't we just be happy that those now, even if it's not our favorite, it's not, and we're not the audience, how great is it that magic has that much of a scope? How great is it?
It's more like music now, where we have like a Celine Dion and like Eminem. They don't belong together, but they're in the same genre.
The you know, music exploded when I think it was the Stratocaster guitar, one of the main guitars, was the one Jimi Hendrix had. When those became affordable and were only $100, when suddenly everyone could get the tools, we got Jimi Hendrix. We got people who normally wouldn't have had access to these tools creatively. And like you see some of these, you know, I mean, yes, I grew up on going to the library too, and I love it. But the fact that there are now kids in areas of the world where there is no library, where they don't have a library, they don't have the access to it, and they can't just buy a $50 magic book. You know, like there are multiple gates in their way. The fact that those gatekeepers are gone and they can learn the basics of this art through YouTube, through, you know, Instagram, and share their ideas. Kids, you know, on the other side of the globe who've never set foot in a magic shop or a library are creating best-selling tricks. They're going on Penn and Teller and fooling the crap out of them. Like, it's objectively better. There are downsides to it, of course. You know, I mean, there's, and I say it, I always try to remember to say this. I don't believe in exposing tricks that you have no right to teach. There's, you know, if like I wouldn't put someone else's, you know, current trick in my book. But if it's in an old book that is, you know, maybe been republished a couple times, or, you know, other people have like for example, again, that Thought Echo, I didn't learn it in the original Pallbearers. It was in, you know, it was then reburied in the Card College Light books. You know? So there are things like, if they're living, of course, I asked their permission. Like when I did the my Penguin lecture, I double checked with Jack Kent Tiller to teach the blister effect, and he said it's before he passed, and he said, "Yeah, absolutely." Which was one of the last times I chatted with him. Unfortunately, he was deteriorating pretty quickly at the end, from what I heard from his close family and friends. But you know, I checked with him, and also Penguin owns the rights to his books, so I had double permission as far as that goes. There was one thing that I was going to teach on the lecture, but they weren't 100% sure if someone else had created something similar, so that ended up on the cutting room floor, and I'm okay with that. I've since reached out to that person and made sure it was okay, and I've got my own work available on that effect now, and that's fine. So, you know, I do try to be, you know, careful, you know, with that kind of stuff. I don't want to download, download the #1 trick on Theory 11 and then teach that on Scam Nation. No, I want to, you know, find stuff that's older that maybe not a lot of people know about, or stuff that I've brought enough of myself to. If it's my right to put it in a book and sell it, to me, there's no difference in deciding to give it away, you know?
Yeah.
But I'm because I think a lot of people unfairly lump YouTube tutorials in with piracy. Like, you know, oh, they upload the DVD to YouTube, where they watch the trick and then film themselves showing the gimmick or showing the method. And like, no, that is not what I'm about. Like, of course not.
YouTube is the modern library, really. It's like it's the biggest
really
library that we have. That's all it is. And if people are willing to search it and sit through, I think Lloyd Barnes said it in one of his videos where he was teaching something. He's like, for the average person, this is going to be an incredibly boring 20 minutes. But if you're interested in magic, you'll learn a trick. But like the average spectator is just going to like tune out before they get to any of the good bits.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And it will always be Scam School to me as well. The Scam Nation just feels weird.
Yeah, it's
Scam School. Oh yeah,
it's
Squarespace.
It's ownership of like who owns the title of Scam School and everything. Brian explained it to me. Basically, if they do it under anything other than Scam School, they can do whatever they want with that footage. But if it's under Scam, because I did ask him about one of my old episodes using the footage of that for my Penguin lecture, and he's like, "That's before back when this other company, co-owned the production on it. So technically, no, I don't own that footage. I can't give you the okay."
It's the best jingled out for any magic show.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Oh, I missed that.
It was like it's just in your head constantly.
Are you kidding me? Like that is the best jingle ever. Best jingle in magic. Never thought I'd say those words, but okay.
It doesn't have much competition, but it's definitely the best.
There's a title, Best Jingle in Magic. There we go. We found it. Jingle bells, it's all good. It's all good.
Speaking of jingle bells, we actually had someone send in a question for this Christmas thing about Kian sent in. What is your favorite Christmas themed magic trick? So I think
I have a version of my haunted key, which I taught on Scam School before it was Scam Nation. I do teach it on my Penguin lecture as well. In my Penguin lecture, I go into a lot more detail of like versions of the gimmick and using the haunted key and everything else. There's a lot of like pro tips that I really went into all the detail of it. That said, in my ebook Journal of Alchemy, available from Vanishing Ink, it's like $10 or $12. I teach several effects. The original version of that 6 and 9 trick, which I called Point of View.
You didn't call it 69.
Yeah, 69. Yeah. There's that. I teach my version of Doc Daly's last trick in there. But the last thing in it, after I teach the haunted key with the out to lunch gimmick, I include a script that I have for that routine, which is all based around A Christmas Carol. And it's all about Jacob Marley and the chains and locks and everything else. And he was visited by 3 spirits. And then I love it because at the end they have the open padlock. I also love the end line for that one because the spirit turns the lock. The spirit of Christmas turns the key. I show the drawing of the lock is open. I say, when the spirits turn the key, your chains were freed, which is a great end line, which I get to show them. And then this is my favorite line to do. And I missed doing it last year. And I've been doing it a bunch this year. I hand it to them. I say, you may keep that, just don't sleep in the same room with it, which is a Eugene Berger line. But then I add, don't sleep in the same room with it because you're going to wake up at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3. It's going to be real. It's going to be a whole thing. So just, which I love. So if you want that full script, it's in Journal of Alchemy, which again is just, $12, and there's other essays and such in there that aren't available.
Stocking filler, guys. Stocking fillers.
Stocking fillers.
Yeah, stocking filler.
Yeah. One of the things I've been doing a lot actually recently, I got it from John Morton. He recently released, it was like a digital Christmas version of his baby book where you get the images that you can just have on your phone, which is just a brilliant method.
Nice.
And also I've been in the small mini brainwave Maximum with the X on the back. So just get blank cards and just write Christmas things on it, and then they pick one, and everything else has an X on it. And that I think that's the perfect trick to customize for anything, because you just need blank cards, and you can just make it up very quickly. I think it's a very strong routine.
Nice.
There's one other one. I'll tell you what. I'll make a point of making this easy for everyone. If you, so the link I have on this is joediamondlife.com/store, but I have a Facebook group called the Mystic Circle. And what I'll do is between now and Thursday, I'll reshare this. There's one other Christmas effect. I haven't done it in a couple years, but I love it. I filmed it for Jay Sankey's Inside Deception site. So if you're a member of that site, you can go through the archives and find it there. Search my name, it should show up. But I'll show it. I'll share it on my Inner Circle page, which there's a link to through the store link and everything. You just go on Facebook and type in Joe Diamond Mystic Circle. The Inner Circle is for clients and bookers and everything. That's the lay people one. This, the Mystic Circle is for other mystics. Where we can talk freely about methods and stuff. Because sometimes, after a gig, I want to be like, oh, I couldn't read the handwriting on this one thing. And don't really want to say that in, when it has to do with a method.
You don't want to get that wrong with the group name wrong, because he's like.
But the Christmas effect, it's based on a Jay Sankey effect called duets. It's not mentalism. It's 2 bells. I have 2 bells, a little red one and a little green one. And you hand someone the red bell and they shake it and it's empty. And you explain you took the piece of solder out. They put it down, you cover it with a glass, you don't touch it. You then pick up the other colored bell and shake it, and it rings. You drop that on the glass, and then you make the sound transfer from bell to bell, and they're both different colors. It resets, or you can give the 2 bells away as souvenirs. I love doing it. It's so deceptive. It's a great method. There's nothing else like it in your repertoire, I promise. It's also good for Mardi Gras because there's those little bells on the end of like Mardi Gras jester hats. So I've done a few Mardi Gras parties over the years. It's a lovely piece of Christmas magic. So if you're going to do something where you sit down with friends and family, it's going to be the perfect like one little thing to do for that. So that's another one, which again I'll share on the Mystic Circle page to if anyone wants to see that.
Definitely, that'd be great.
Very cool.
And you've got something coming up as well with a workshop on publicity. Do you want to tell people about that and what they can find out more about it?
Yeah, so again, JoeDiamondLive.com/store. It's and actually what I'll do while I'm doing this as well. So let me talk. So JoeDiamondLive.com/store is where you can get all my published materials for the stuff that I haven't published but have released. Like for example, my Penguin lecture and Journal of Alchemy. I do have links to that stuff. I'm not in charge of selling those. So when I do like, discount codes and sales and stuff, unfortunately, it doesn't rely or refer to those. But for everything I sell for my own web store, it's nice and easy. If anyone has any questions about any of that stuff in there, feel more than free to shoot me a message about it beforehand. I'd rather someone ask a question and not get it and maybe get something else down the line than get something and not be that thrilled about it. So yeah. I'm not going to, with some of that stuff, I want to make sure if you want to make sure it's a good fit, do that. So same thing with this publicity workshop. So it's going to be live. It'll be over Zoom. I'm doing it on a Sunday it starts at 2 p.m. my time, which means it'll still be early enough for anyone in the UK to watch as well. I purposefully did that. I wanted to do it on a day where likely there weren't going to be a lot of shows. I wanted to do it early in the year. And it's going to be a full breakdown of basically everything I couldn't get into in the Penguin lecture. Again, the Penguin lecture, I go through a lot of publicity stuff, but this is going to be more hands-on. We're limiting it to 20 people because people are going to be encouraged to send in a copy of their press release for us to work on with the group. Also a copy of their business card. We're going to do like a business card hive mind workshop. I actually have collected a lot of business cards over the years, and I plan on taking photos and showing pictures of cards like Eugene Berger's card, Steve Cohen's card. We'll talk about advantages and disadvantages and just other, again, not for you to go, oh, let me copy this person's card exactly, but to give you an idea of like, oh, here's a card that obviously works because this is a very successful performer. Let's talk about it. So the first hour is just going to be promotional and publicity ideas. I'm going to talk about how to get a good hook. I'm actually going to share with everyone the copy of the email I send to podcasts. So it's basically how I get on like paranormal podcasts, a little bit with magic podcasts too, of course. But lately, like my bread and butter has been, coast to coast, all this stuff. And talking to people about like, the more spooky sided stuff, because those are people who are likely to buy a ticket to a show that has spooky stuff. But if you're a family magician and you want to, you just need to change a couple words and submit it to a bunch of parenting podcasts or whatever. It'll be very, very flexible with that. Hour 2 and hour 3, we'll go over everyone's press releases and business cards. Again, people can submit their own. I'll also have a couple all-star business cards in there. And then we'll take a little 5-10 minute breaks between each hour as well. And then hour 4 is going to be full-on publicity effects. I'm going to teach how I close my show with an invisible deck that gets me more publicity and more work. I'm going to teach how I've taken certain effects with publicity stunts I've done and done them in my live show. Just for example, when I solved the world's largest corn maze blindfolded, I put together a blindfold routine in my show that allowed me to talk about the stunt and everything else and then perform something so it had context and didn't just sound like, hey, look at how great I am. I have a world record for this thing. I had to mention it because it was part of the story. And what I am going to do, I'm going to do this right now as we speak. This will be, I'm going to make a Deceive reality discount code. Spell reality, right, Joe? Okay. I'm going to
an illusion.
Yeah. Deceive reality. All right, you know what? We're just going to make it nice and simple. Deceive reality. We'll keep it nice and simple. And it will be 20% off any order. And we'll do that. Tell you what, you said this comes out the day before Christmas, right?
It'll be coming out on the Thursday, so from the 23rd.
Yeah, we'll do this. We'll do this all. So if you're listening to this at any point between now and 11:59 Central Time on January 31st, 2022, you will get 20% off the entire order. That will include the workshop as well. So it's 125 American. So with this 20%, that'll be only 100. So you'll save $25. So that'll be good just for your listeners. If they want to use it, for that. There's only 20 spots. One other thing, just a full disclosure, it says so on the website, but one other thing, I did think long and hard about this aspect of it. It's not going to be recorded for after the fact. I know that's a deal breaker for a lot of people, but I thought, if people want to share their own press releases, their business cards, all that stuff, if we're going to do that, like all my stuff is on pirating sites at this point. Like we're not going to stop it, but I want people who come to this to feel safe that they can share an idea, or if they do share an idea, like, yeah, you're sharing it with 20 people who might, hey, let's be cool and not steal this person's idea. Let's work on it, and such. Feel free to message them if you have another idea. And that's just easier to do if we keep it small and live than having it pre-recorded. If I were to do just a straight ahead lecture where it was all me, and we weren't doing like actual workshop stuff with people, I'd be more flexible with that. But for something like this, I think the pros far more outweigh the cons, because you get to come and not just get ideas from me, but other people. And of course, if you want to just come and see what other people are doing and, use that, like, oh, they put their email address on one side, but their website on the other. Why did they do that? Let's talk about that. Just little ideas like that. Or, why this person has a photo on their card, why this person doesn't. What are the upsides and downsides to all that? So it's and the reason we're going with that stuff too is I wanted to make it all stuff you could apply immediately, not stuff you had to like, the press release, change 3 words. If you're a family entertainer, you can be on parenting podcasts the next day. You're talking, if you are a kids magician and you work with kids and you have kids, being on a parenting podcast should be the easiest thing in the world. So that's the other thing we'll talk about. We'll talk about finding good fits, thinking about good fits, and we can be a little bit more hands-on and work through it rather than just, here's a broad general thing that you kind of have to fill in the blanks on for yourself. Whereas if you have a question right then and there, you can ask me, or you can come on and we can have a dialogue too. So I think, so it's going to be 4 hours. Again, we'll have breaks and everything. It will be worth it, I think. And again, considering that, most, seminars and conferences and everything cost 2, 3, 4 times as much for that, and you have to go sit in a stuffy hotel conference room for most of the day and all that. The fact that this can be at home and you can relax and ask questions and take notes, like it's, there's no travel time. Again, I think there's a lot to do with this. And if it goes well, I will plan on doing another one of these, of course, schedule depending. All that said, too, if you just want to get $20 off something that's by the way, everything on my website is on sale right now too at joediamondlife.com/store, everything but the workshop. That said, the code will work on everything, even if it's already discounted on sale. You'll get that percentage off the sale price, so you'll save even more with that code.
He's like Santa Claus. He's like Santa Claus.
Yeah, basically. Yep. That gives me an excuse
to
not be in shape. So
61%.
But again, if you want to just go on and get a couple, ebooks or downloads, that's fine too.
Yeah, all of Joe's stuff, all your stuff, man, is really workable stuff. So anyone, check out your stuff. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's 61% of our listeners are in the US, so that'll be helpful if there's any shipping or anything involved. It'll make it a lot easier.
Currently, I don't have anything that has any shipping. Currently,
that's
everything's digital.
Even better.
Currently, even when I had the Penguin download cards, I just scratched off the back and took a photo and sent it to people, emailed it to people, rather than shipping
That's a good way to do it.
Just with everything else going on in the world, eventually. Yes, like everyone and their brother right now, I am working on a hardcover book. No, I don't know when it'll be done. No, I don't know who it'll be published through. Yes, please keep bugging me about it so it gets done eventually. Because I would love to have all this new stuff in one place. I've reached out to a couple places. Some were on the fence, some not so much. But now that it's been a while after the Penguin lecture and everything, I've gotten back to work on it. So hopefully next time we talk, I'll at least have an idea or a date or something.
Yeah.
Worst case scenario, I'll do what every other mentalist does and just self-produce 100 copies and sell them for like $300 a piece.
Yeah, that works. That's cheap. That's cheap for a magic book.
I'm a
bargain.
I'm a giver. So.
Anything under $500 is a bargain when it comes to magic books in this day and age.
When I did Max Maven, So You Want to Be a Mentalist workshop, he talked about mentalism booklets going for sale like in like the early 1800s that discuss like code acts and Q&A acts and astrology acts and working them. And what's funny is a lot of them were $200 to $500 in today's money. So literally nothing is new. Overpriced, overblown mentalism has been around since the beginning. So, and that's the other thing too. Like without naming any names, I have tried to keep my stuff very reasonable, very affordable. I don't want to just charge $75 for a PDF that wasn't even proofread. I work really hard on my stuff. I try to make sure it's, you get good value for what you're getting, and make it, not, an arm and a leg, like some mentalism products on the market are. Like again, until I did this, online workshop, the most expensive thing on the site was a $40 downloadable video, which is the same as my Penguin lecture. So like, that's pretty, considering I don't have the $300 book test or the $150 hand signed, numbered, bounded with the ass hairs of angels, the wax sealed thumb drives that everyone's do. That blows my mind.
Yes.
I'm happy they're getting it. I'm happy they're doing it. I don't get it, but good for you. You go forth and keep doing it. If I had a formula that just kept making money, it's like Nickelback. I don't blame Nickelback. Like, hey, if I was getting paid what they were getting paid to write and sing the songs they were, and you just kept repeating that, okay, go forward.
You've convinced me.
Have fun.
I'm going to release a booklet with my chair test for $500. That's what I'll do.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
I got a book test for $100 once. And the method, I won't call the performer out by name, but the method
Ah.
Yeah. Well, no, I'll tell you what this was. I won't say what it was for or anything like that. But it was, you have a conversation with the person and say, hey, if I were to ask you to name a word or this or that or whatever, what would you name? They say it and you remember it. And then 6 months later, when you're talking to that person, you have that prediction set up. Yeah. What?
That works with playing cards.
Sold. The trick is sold. No refunds.
It's like doing Bin and Lemon and planting the fucking tree.
Yeah. It was like, what?
That can make sense sometimes with a card. Like if you ask someone, just name a card. If you remember that, they might name the card, but like an object or something, they probably won't.
Yeah, exactly.
They just look around them and see something.
Now here's the thing too. If that was like mentioned, what got me too is they had a video of them doing this on the radio, and it working. That's kind of what got me. But like, that's something you include in the back section of a book. That's not something you sell for $100 on its own.
Yeah. That's a bonus thing.
Out of respect, I won't badmouth the person who produced it, but I haven't bought anything else of theirs.
Yeah.
Like, and to be fair, this person already doesn't have. When we're not recording, I'll tell you who it was. But yeah, I try. And
we're going to be selling the behind the scenes of this for $100 if anyone wants to get it by hand.
Let's do it. Yeah, let's. My friend Jake and I, we play not my cup of tea, where when we see something we don't like, we're just like, not my cup of tea, just randomly. We'll do it with movies, mostly magicians, but we'll just be like, yeah, that guy who worked at Santa's workshop in Lake Geneva, who did like the strolling magic out front. Not my cup of tea.
Joe, we're gonna have you back for a section, and we'll name random shit, and then you can just say, "We like grind my gears."
Grind my gears. My friend Chris Hendricks and I, we also have a game. We should play this next time. It's Magic Trick or Marital Aid, where you name the title of a product, and you have to guess if it's a sex toy or a magic trick. And it's harder than you think. Rabbit Habit, The Bunny, Inception. That one's a trick.
I have Inception.
That's both. Yeah. There's a subcategory of both which you can throw in every once in a while. When we drove to Abbott's in Colon, Michigan a few years ago, I drove her up there for her show, and we just played that for like half the car ride. It's hilarious.
That's so good. Before we finish up for the last podcast of the year and before Christmas, is there any trick or new release by somebody else or something that would be on your Christmas list this year that you'd be looking forward to picking up?
Can it be something I already have?
Yeah, it can be.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with, and this is a little biased because I saw this months ago before it was released. Spidey's ABC, I think, has really knocked it out of the park. So I was on a Zoom call with him and a couple other people. I've only met him online a couple times, but we hit it off, and he showed it to us. Then he did a version of it for us through Zoom and showed us the method. And I was like, oh, that's great. That's beautiful. He's like, I'll send you a set when we're getting ready to release it. And I had forgotten. And this is how great Spidey is. He remembered and reached out to me. He's like, hey, these are all set. What's a good address to send these to you? And I was like, oh, cool. Like, do you want me to give you a quote? It's like, if you like the quality, don't feel like you have to, but I said I'd send you a set, but here you go. And I figured, okay, as long as they're well produced and, because there have been cards where it's like, oh, that's a clever method, but then you hold the prop up to the light and you can see through it, or it's not well made or something. And these are off the chart. They look just like something you'd get at Walmart. They passed my wife test. I handed them to her and I told her what the method was and said, find it. And she couldn't find it.
Nice.
They're great. He has a lot of great insight. Now, and again, I say this full disclosure because he did send me a pack. And he did use my quote for the promo. That said, I bought with my own money a second pack, luckily before they went, they sold out everywhere. And so I'm saying it now because I do want to get a third pack to stock up. So it is technically still a Christmas wish. And I'm saying it now because, it's selling out everywhere because it's great and it's usable. And I think it's something that a lot of people can and should use, whether you're a magician, a mentalist. If you want to make some card routines to be more kid appropriate, I think they're great for that. If you want to, I'll share this. I won't say how. I'll say a little bit. There's something in Jack Kent Tiller's trio that uses pre-show that these cards would bring that up to 11 on. With his combination of pre-show combined with Spidey's thinking with that deck. Oh, good luck. Good luck. Like it would look so clean. I haven't found, I'll admit I haven't found a routine to use them, but as we've talked about before, I do a lot of radio, a lot of stuff where it's like, I just need to, know a piece of information before we go live that maybe isn't always written down or something. And these check the boxes. They look normal. They're great. And the amount of things he does, he has a hidden crib sheet on one. It's great. I think I used to review Magic products, and this is, as far as Magic products go, top of the line as far as usability and stuff that will allow you to create your own routines and use it in a variety of situations. Also great. I have no, and again, I get no money. I don't even get another free deck. I'm done. I'm done as far as like having to say good things about it, but I'll continue to say good things about it because it's a genuinely great tool. I think it's going to become a new staple for kind of like how Real Die and other mentalism props have just become like the thing everyone uses. I think this is going to become another one of those because it's so practical and so bulletproof.
Definitely. Cool. I've seen the trailer summon. It definitely looks really cool. And I think I like the amount of like picture decks that are coming out, or that style of like thing that like they're also different as well, which I really like. And like, you can do that sort of stuff.
He talks about how to use them for readings, and it's awesome. It's so genius. I've been doing readings my whole life. I've done cold reading. He did a cold read on me with the version he did for me over Zoom. And I felt called out. I was like, oh man, he's nailing me. And it was the first time we had chatted too. So like, it was cool to be on the receiving end of that. So again, if someone who is a cold reader feels that with the tools in this, like again, the average person is going to just, you could start your own religion.
Definitely.
So I would put those up there. One other friend I'll say really good things about who has something out right now. Alexander Marsh. I always have to remember. He performs as Alex McAleer, so I have to remember Alexander Marsh. He has Thy Will Be Done from the 1914. It's a prediction effect with a magician tarot card. It's a version of the free will plot, and in the last 6 months, I've done his version more than my version that I teach on my Penguin lecture. And it's, again, I get no money for saying it, but it's something that's great that I use, has a lot of potential, a lot of ways that people can present it in a variety of different ways. And again, it's unlike something that you would be likely to have in your repertoire already. So highly recommend that as well. So those are my two,
definitely
two stocking stuffers
for
the holidays.
Yeah, definitely. They're good picks. And just want to say thanks again, Joe, for coming on. We really appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, anytime. And anytime either of you want to do, virtual dinner lunch at noon, 2:00, whatever my time, when you guys are free, let me know. Or if you're up really late, let me know. I mean, I'll hang out.
I'm up really late all the time now. I've got a 10-month-old baby, so it's all good.
Yeah. Geez, 10 months already. Wow.
10 months. Yeah, nearly 11. Nearly 11.
Wow. It's madness.
Time doesn't exist anymore, does it?
His double lift is sloppy as shit, though, so I got to work on that.
I've been very disappointed.
Not interested anymore. Not
Yeah.
interested anymore.
He just rolls around in the straitjacket as well, which like what's even going on? You know, it's not right. The child services will be getting onto us now after that.
Yeah.
But definitely, if people are watching this, want to hit the subscribe button as well. We've got loads of interviews coming up in January. We've got some good ones. So follow us on Instagram and Facebook as well. That's the best place so we can announce who we have coming up. We have a big one at the start of January and a couple more as well spread out. So make sure you check that out.
Real quick too. I mean, you guys. I mean, again, thank you. I'm humbled you asked me on in the first place. Doubly humbled you asked me to come back. You guys have been crushing it. I mean, the amount of just great guests and you know, not both high profile and high quality. Like it's a great blend of both of those, which you don't always get from Magic Podcasts. And you guys just, I mean, I'm a friend. But I'm also a fan of the show too. It's been great to hear the episodes and be learning a lot.
And you're high profile and high quality, so
there you go.
Thank you. Thank you. You guys are the best.
Absolutely.
Happy Christmas, man. Have a good one.
Yeah, and happy Christmas to everyone. I hope everyone has a good Christmas and a good New Year. And here's to a much better 2022. So
let's get back out there live, guys. Let's get back out there.
Cheers.
Cheers.
See you all next year. Bye.
Happy Christmas.
Happy Christmas.